Hello, this is Steve, and I'm reading from The Wine Spectator. Grapevine, U.S. Supreme Court considering new wine case. The topic of wine could be back before the U.S. Supreme Court in coming months. The justices are weighing a petition to hear a case challenging a law that bans Arizona residents from ordering wine from out-of-state retailers. The petition comes after several years of challenges to similar laws in multiple states and conflicting rulings by federal judges. If the justices agree to hear the case, it could change the way wine is sold across the nation. In Day v. Henry, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals upheld Arizona's law requiring out-of-state wine retailers to maintain a physical presence in the state. Like officials in the other 37 states with similar bans, Arizona's argue that this requirement is necessary to maintain the three-tier system of producers, wholesalers, and retailers they use to control alcohol sales for public safety. It's an argument long opposed by those challenging the laws. All the stuff coming from another state is going through their three-tier system, so I don't think it undermines it at all, said Sean O'Leary, an attorney who filed an amicus brief in the Arizona case on behalf of the National Association of Wine Retailers. The overall effect is that this framework has made it more difficult for wine consumers to obtain certain wines. It's a nuisance that fans of most other produced products don't suffer in an age of e-commerce. Laws on alcohol sales walk a tightrope. Under the Constitution's Commerce Clause, states cannot create discriminatory barriers to interstate commerce. Under the 21st Amendment, they can set rules to promote public health and create an orderly market for alcohol. Recent rulings have been contradictory. In an Indiana case, federal judges were split over whether the state's ban on retailer shipping was discriminatory, but concluded the ban served public safety because state authorities could inspect local retailers. But judges on the First Circuit bench argue that a Delaware ban cannot be given a judicial seal of approval, premised either on the virtues of the three-tier system generally or on the basis of a theoretical benefits to public health and safety. The case was decided in favor of state officials due to an issue over whether plaintiffs had standing, not over the merits. The Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals remanded an Ohio case back to the district court for not hearing plaintiffs' evidence that Ohio's ban was unnecessary. What all this means is that, while federal judges in some jurisdictions believe that physical location requirement is legal because states say they need it, case closed, other judges say that evidence is needed to support such regulations. Direct shipping proponents admit they have a high wall to scale for the Supreme Court to grant a review. After all, only about 1% of petitions are granted, and previous requests for review by plaintiffs in similar cases have been denied. But if the petition isn't granted, or if it is and the plaintiffs lose, supporters of ending what's effectively a ban on out-of-state wine sales should remember a similar case out of Missouri. Federal judges there upheld a requirement for a physical requirement as an essential feature, but they also appeared to go out of their way to call the current three-tier system economically and socially anachronistic, suggesting that if the Supreme Court can't grant the relief plaintiffs are seeking, there is sentiment in parts of the country that change is needed. That would be a job for elected officials and voters. Memento Mori co-owner purchases historic Edge Hill. Napa vintner Hayes Drumright has purchased the St. Helena Edge Hill estate from Joel and Sarah Gott. Renovated by the late Leslie Rudd, it includes 27 acres, 6 of them planted to a field blend of red grapes, plus a 3-story stone winery built in 1876. Drumright, co-owner of Memento Mori and Vida Valiente, is joined by his wife Susanna and a group of 20 investors, private clients of his other wine labels, winemaker Sam Kaplan and general manager Genevieve Echeverry round out the team's leadership. The purchase price was $21.5 million. I saw the property for the first time about 2 years ago, Drumright said. I had heard of it but really didn't know it. After visiting, I immediately asked Joel for a deeper tour. Drumright plans to use the estate as a temporary home for Vida Valiente while its facility is built, with completion scheduled for 2030. At that point, Drumright aims to make Edge Hill's Grapes and Winery the home of a new label, Ultra Morton. Retrofitted winery has a permit to produce 30,000 gallons annually, along with a distillery license and hospitality permit. Drumright has shown a knack for creating luxury wine brands. He partnered with friends to create Memento Mori In Vita Valiente, he partners with Sam and Nancy Kaplan and is developing a winery for the brand on Crystal Springs Road at the base of Howell Mountain. Drumright's team plans to replant primarily with Cabernet Sauvignon, still trying to figure out the vineyard, said Kaplan. If all goes to plan, we should have a first wine coming in 2029 or 2030 as the Vita property finishes and we get ready to start with Ultra Mortem. Santa Margarita owners buy Oregon Vineyard. Italy's Marzotto family has purchased a 41-acre Domaine Lumineux vineyard in Oregon's Dundee Hills from Francis Ford Coppola. The deal closed the week of March 16. Neither side disclosed financial terms. The family plans to add the vineyard to its Rocco Winery holdings. Herita USA, an arm of the Marzotto's wine firm, purchased Rocco in 2021. We really think it's a special place, said Vittorio Marzotto, Vice President of Strategic Initiatives for Herita USA. The Coppolas retained the Lumineux brand and tasting room in Newberg, Oregon, with the wine still produced at a nearby custom crush facility. Aaron Herman, Lumineux Director of Operations, said the company also plans to buy fruit from the vineyard. Rocco founding winemaker Roland Soles, who stayed on with the project after he sold it to the Marzottos, is excited to work with the vineyard again. In 2013, when the vineyard was named Vista Hills, Soles saw it as an ideal source for his RMS bottlings. It faces east and south and has those deep, jory soils, says Soles. And then the neighborhood, I mean, good Lord, there's Domaine Serene and Domaine Drouhin, Oregon, right there. Jabolet's Domaine de la Chapelle taps Chiara Pepe. Changes come again to one of the Rhone's legendary estates. The Frey family, owners of the Paul Jabolet Ain domain in Hermitage since 2006, have announced that the new head of viticulture and winemaking for their top Domaine de Chapelle wines will be Chiara Pepe, the 32-year-old Italian winemaker who helms her family estate Emilio Pepe in Abruzzo. Pepe replaces Caroline Frey, who had directed winemaking at the estate since her father, Swiss businessman Jean-Jacques Frey, took ownership 20 years ago. She stepped away from winemaking duties in June 2025. We weren't looking for a revolution, just the next chapter in this story, says Delphine Frey, Carolyn's younger sister, and director of the Frey family estates. Frey first met Pepe in the summer of 2025. After walking the vineyards and tasting together, I saw a natural connection between Chiara's sensibility and this special place. Pepe will divide her time between Hermitage and her home in Abruzzo. A longtime fan of Northern Rhone wines, she admits to a lifelong obsession with Syrah. The old-school style of Syrah stimulates my brain in a different way than other iconic wines, she said. Most of the bottles that shaped my winemaking path were Syrah. I've always dreamed of making it. Few wines in the world carry the cultural weight of La Chapelle. Named for the tiny stone chapel at the summit of the granite-topped Hermitage Hill, it is the top cuvée of Paul Jabolet Ain, the family estate founded in 1834 by Antoine Jabolet. It's a blend of Jabolet's most esteemed Hermitage parcel holdings, primarily La Miel, Les Brassards, and Les Greffeux. Pepe's arrival is sure to cause a stir in the region. We were not expecting this, said Jean-Louis Chave, fellow Hermitage vintner. The Italian touch in Hermitage? Chiara is charming, outgoing, and full of passion. Jabolet has the potential for amazing wines. La Chapelle should be at the top. DRC 2023, Harnessing Nature's Generosity. The 2023 growing season had its challenges, beginning with a generous flowering, followed by localized hail in Echerzeaux, and outbreaks of odium in Montrachet. Botrytis, heat waves, however, the team at Domaine della Romanée-Conti, DRC, made some significant decisions in the vineyard and the cellar that resulted in a range of superb red and white Burgundies. DRC co-directors Perrine Final and Bertrand de Villaine were in New York recently to present the 2023 vintage release. The event was hosted by longtime importer Wilson Daniels. The wines were tasted non-blind. The wines deliver a certain amount of pleasure thanks to their bright fruit flavors and relative accessibility on this particular day. Yet there was also a brooding intellectual side that reveals itself in the dense textures and firm tannins that will require a decade or two to resolve. Together, this creates a beautiful tension in the wines, a youthful tease that will gain maturity and complexity with age. In 2023, the flowering was prolific. One of the keys to managing the vineyards was to eliminate some of the potential crop early on. Rigorous selection of plant material by the domain generally keeps yields in check, as does careful pruning and debudding. However, in 2023, due to the abundance and size of the clusters, the team performed green harvests first in June after the flowering and at the end of July to promote veraison and healthy grapes. These decisions resulted in ripe and healthy fruit, allowing the team to select the very best quality grapes. The stems were also mature. After a little fine-tuning both in the vineyard and on the sorting table, the cuvées included 100% whole clusters. There was slightly less new oak employed in 2023, and the wines were racked once during the aging to eliminate some of the lees. Also, the blending of cuvées was done a bit earlier than usual to preserve the freshness in the wines. The Corton Prince Florent de Merode expresses some underbrush and animal notes in the aromas, settling into a core of ripe black cherry framed with plenty of spice. Meaty and long, it ends with accents of sandalwood, 95 points non-blind, $1,155. There is a Vosne Romanée Cuvée de Volt Bloché Premier Cru in 2023, and it's very classy, offering a silky texture of great energy, balance, and length, with flavors of black cherry, blackberry, violet, and coffee, 94 points non-blind, $623. The Echezot delivers more weight and depth than the Vosne Romanée du Vaux Bloché, also displaying dark fruit notes of black cherry and blackberry with an accent of earth. Its dense tannins make it firm, yet it is beautifully balanced and long, 95 points non-blind, $1,185. By contrast, Grand Echezot, 96 points non-blind, at $1,926, leans more in the red fruit and floral direction, silky and intense, with a bit more grain to its tannins and complexity than its Flahy sibling. As it often does, the Romanée Saint-Vivant shows reserve, particularly in the aroma, with plenty of cherry, blackcurrant, blackberry, and iron flavors. It's vibrant, revealing an excellent depth and a super long finish, 97 points non-blind, $31.75 cost. On the other hand, Richebourg, 96 points, $31.75 non-blind tasted, is opulent and forthcoming, featuring spicy cherry and sandalwood notes underscored by firm tannins, if not the depth of the RSV. I was impressed by the rich, lush, and dense texture of the La Tâche, boasting black cherry, blackcurrant, licorice, black pepper, and spice flavors. It has plenty of muscle and tannins, remaining fresh and strong on the finish. 98 points non-blind at $3,848. Though silky and ethereal, the Romanée Conti doesn't outshine the La Tâche at this stage. Rather, the two bookend the Vosne Romanée range for the domain stylistically, the former delivering power, the latter finesse. The Romanée Conti exhibits rose, cherry, currant, and a green vegetal accent in the best sense, aligned to a vibrant structure and silky texture, 98 points non-blind, $11,921. The Corton Charlemagne, 96 points non-blind, $2,411, features acacia, lemon, and pear aromas and flavors verging on tropical fruit before the fine cut and precision take over, as this plays out with a long mineral aftertaste. Montrachet starts out with a smoky hazelnut, lime blossom, and citronella flavor, in great opulence, converging on the persistent finish with mineral, pastry, toasty oak, and spice elements, 98 points non-blind, $6,525. In sum, Domaine de la Romanée Conti delivers reference point wines for Burgundy in 2023. Sparkling expressions. The world's best sparkling wine regions give voice to distinctive traditions. Sparkling wine is a global language with many regional accents. While champagne remains the standard bearer, winemakers around the world have developed their own interpretations, producing versions that range from luxurious icons to everyday bottles. The selections featured in this roundup all receive scores of 90 points or higher from the Wine Spectator and represent excellent value within the context of their regions. These sparkling wines reflect diverse grapes, growing conditions, and viticultural practices. In France, crisp Cremants follow Champagne's lead while highlighting regional terroirs and winemaker sensibilities. Italy offers a wide spectrum with bright, fruit-forward Proseccos contrasting with more structured, bottle-fermented wines from Franciacorta and Trento, whose climates foster nuance and precision. Spanish sparkling wine, led by Cava, leans on unique grapes rarely seen anywhere else, with some examples long aged to develop rich complexity. In the United States, producers in California and Oregon blend Old World techniques with New World fruit, crafting examples that range from generous and rounded to refreshing and energetic. Despite their differences, these wines share a common heritage. Today, sparkling wine is defined not by a single region, but by a global family of traditions, with each bottle speaking its own idiom. France. For centuries, bubbles were considered a flaw in the wines of Champagne. It wasn't until the mid-1800s that sparkling wine became the region's prevailing style. Poor Dom Perignon, often credited as the inventor of Champagne, had actually been tasked by his fellow monks with stopping the creation of bubbles due to secondary fermentation. They were trying to solve an aggravating problem. These bubbles were causing their wine bottles to explode as cellar temperatures rose in the spring. Fortunately for us, the region eventually learned to prize what it once tried to prevent. Today, Champagne's influence on global sparkling wine is foundational. Its heirloom production process, now replicated worldwide, is reverentially known as a traditional method. In this approach, a wine undergoes a second fermentation in the very bottle in which it will later be sold, trapping carbon dioxide to create its signature bubble while aging on yeast to develop greater depth and complexity of flavor. The region's stylistic terminology, such as Blanc de Blanc and Blanc de Noir, has been adopted everywhere from California to Germany to New Zealand, and has its dosage scale, sugar added before the final packaging to adjust sweetness and acidity. The name itself, jealously protected, has become a cultural shorthand for refinement and luxury. Because of Champagne's defining traits, high acidity, intense minerality, detailed mousse, and chiseled structure, can be demanding on the palate, particularly in youth, certain houses hold back their wines for extended aging. This offers consumers the convenience of purchasing champagnes already entering their prime, but bottles that have occupied valuable cellar space for years inevitably command a premium. Value in Champagne is relative, with a bottle under $60 considered a bargain, yet many of these competitively priced versions also offer at least medium-term cellar potential while being festive on release. Although Champagne's luxury status remains unchallenged, the rising popularity of its more affordable, characterful siblings is a boon for the sparkling wine fan eager for exploration. Across a number of France's other wine regions, including the Loire, Alsace, Jura, and Savoie, there are many excellent examples of Cremant, a sparkling wine from a specific area of the country, often incorporating local varieties such as Chenin Blanc, Auxerrois, Savagnin, and Jacquard. This diversity of grapes, terroirs, and regional sensibilities means Cremant offers a wide range of styles. All of these regions lie further south than Champagne and tend to produce wines that are a touch rounder, with less piercing acidity, making them more immediately accessible. Cremant may also be bottled at lower pressure than Champagne, resulting in a softer mousse and gentler texture. Recommended sparkling wines from France. Charles Heidsieck, Brut Champagne, 2018, $151. Lilbert Fils, Extra Brut Blanc, Extra Brut Blanc de Blanc Champagne Non-Vintage, $92. Ayala Brut Rosé Champagne Majeur Non-Vintage, $55. Ployes Jacques Mart Brut Champagne Extra Quality NV, $56. Henri Bio Ify Brut Rosé Champagne Non-Vintage, $60. Leclerc Briand Extra Brut Rosé Champagne Non-Vintage, $69. Marie Weiss Brut Champagne Non-Vintage, $47. Veuve Clicquot Brut Champagne Non-Vintage, $49. Alain Vosges Saint-Péray La Bouse d'Alain 2020, $53. And Rollet Périfie Brut Arbois Cremant de Jura Non-Vintage, $29. Italy. Unquestionably responsible for putting Italian sparkling wine on the global map, Prosecco offers a fresh, fruit-forward, approachable style at an attractive price. This is largely due to the high-yielding Glera grape and the tank method of production, which creates sparkling wine quickly and efficiently in pressurized vessels, avoiding many of the labor-intensive steps required by the traditional method. Geographically, Prosecco's DOC covers 9 provinces across Veneto and Friuli-Venezia Giulia, but its historic heart sits about an hour north of Venice in the towns of Conigliaro and Valdobbiadene, where yields can be much lower than in the larger territory. The surrounding hills, known as Conigliano Valdobbiadene, have advanced significantly in recent decades, first with their elevation to DOCG status in 2009, and later through the identification of 43 rive, small communes with stricter rules and lower yields, designed to highlight more localized expression. The top wines from this quality center span a range of dosage levels from extra brut to dry. The finest lower dosage examples show lush melon fruit sharpened by citrusy precision and a granita-like coolness. Finally, off-dry bottlings, confusingly labeled dry, are medium sweet, offering ripe, sometimes honeyed fruit with floral and spicy aromas. Overall, the wines of Conigliano Valdobbiadene show greater complexity and finesse than those of the broader Prosecco DOC, with enough structure to lend this cheerful style a measure of seriousness. But Prosecco's ubiquity has given many consumers a misleading impression of Italian sparkling wine. In reality, Prosecco is something of an outlier. Glera is rarely grown elsewhere, and most of Italy's serious sparkling wine regions focus instead on Champagne's classic grape varieties, while also relying on traditional method for production. Unsurprisingly, the resulting wines tend to resemble Champagne more than Prosecco, though they typically show slightly plusher fruit and a fine, delicate mousse that feels less prickly on the palate. Among Champagne's closest Italian cousins are the wines of Franciacorta and Trento DOC, often rendered Trento DOC. Franciacorta, located in Lombardy, sits just south of Lake Iseo, whose moderating influences helps regulate temperatures and support slow, even ripening. The region's modern identity traces back to Guido Berlucci, who set out in the mid-20th century to craft a Champagne-style sparkling wine in Italy. The blends for Franciacorta are based primarily on Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, but may also include Pinot Bianco, as well as a rediscovered local variety, Herbamat, prized for its naturally high acidity. Today, many producers favor bottlings with low or even zero dosage, highlighting Franciacorta's balance of ripe fruit, freshness, and texture. Trento lies to the west of the Prosecco region, in the Italian Alps, where high elevations and cool mountain air provide ideal conditions for Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier, along with Pinot Bianco. The area's higher altitude and mountain terroir give the wines a firm, sometimes chalky character. As with Franciacorta, Trento's exceptional sparkling wines draw inspiration from Champagne. That lineage traces back to Guido Ferrari, who is credited with producing Italy's first traditional method sparkling wine in 1902. His tradition continues through the Ferrari winery. Recommended sparkling wines from Italy. Bella Vista, Extra Brut Franciacorta Alma, Assemblage 2, non-vintage, $40. Ca del Bosco, Brut Franciacorta Santin, 2020, $80. Ca del Bosco Extra Brut Franciacorta Cuvée Prestige, 48 Edizione, non-vintage, $45. Nino Franco, Extra Brut Valdobbiadene Prosecco Superior Node, 2023, $51. Bella Vista Brut Franciacorta La Scala, 2020, $50. Ferrari Brut Trento Perle Reserva, 2019, $49. And Ruggieri & Co. Brut Rosé Prosecco Treviso Argio, 2024, $18. Spain. Cava literally means cave in Catalan. The term was adopted after the earlier name, Champagne, led to a trade and legal disputes. Cava is an unusual denominación de origen, DO. Unlike appellations such as Rías Baixas or Ribera del Duero, it does not correspond to a single defined geographic area. Instead, the designation includes production zones across both northern and southern Spain. Even so, more than 95% of the wines labeled Cava are produced in the historic center of Catalonia, particularly around Barcelona. From the appellation's earliest days, Cava producers relied on Champagne as their model, employing the process of bottle fermentation. What distinguishes Cava is the continued use of three local varieties, Xarel·lo, Paradella, and Macabeo, although other varieties are now allowed into the blend, including Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Grenache. Cava is classified into three main categories based on lees aging. Cava, minimum 9 months, Cava Reserva, minimum 15 months, and Cava Gran Reserva, minimum 30 months. Longer aging encourages more pronounced autolytic notes, such as biscuit, toast, and smoke. Spain's sparkling wine industry began in the late 19th century, led by pioneers such as Ferrer and Raventos, the respective founders of the Freixenet and Cordenau companies. These producers remain among the largest in the category, together accounting for a significant share of total Cava production. Recent developments aim to elevate Cava's reputation for quality, including the introduction of Cava de Paraje Calificado in 2016, a designation for grapes harvested from a small delimited site, with stricter vineyard rules and aging requirements. Some high-quality producers have also left the DO to form the Corpenat Group, focusing on organic grapes, hand harvesting, and extended aging in the Penedès region. Recommended sparkling wines from Spain. Juve Camp, Brut Cava Gran Reserva 2018, $65. Cordenau, Brut Blanc de Noir Cava Ars Collecta Reserva 2019, $30. Juve Camp, Brut Natur Cava Reserva de la Familia Gran Reserva 2021, $24. Raventos, the first, Blanc, Brut Natur Vino Espumoso de la Finca 2022, $45. Roger Goulart, Brut Rosé Cava 2023, $25. Jopart, Brut Natur Vino Espumoso Corpenat Integral 2022, $34. And Raventos, the first, Blanc, Extra Brut Blanc de Blanc Vino Espumoso 2023, $27. This is Steve, and I've been reading from The Wine Spectator.